This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, we have a very special guest, a local Northwest Ohioan who moved away, came back, and now he's back here in the area. His name is Ben Waggoner, and he is here to talk rock climbing, which is strange for Northwest Ohio. So my first question to you, obviously, is how the heck did you get into rock climbing being from here?
Yeah, that's a wild question. It's been a long journey, but I think it's been in my heart ever since I was a little kid. I loved climbing at the park. I would always climb the monkey bars and always climb trees. When I was a kid, probably, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old, people asked me what I want to do when I grow up, and I told them that I could see myself being a window washer in Toledo up the big skyscraper.
Yep.
So I loved just being up in high places, absolutely loved adventure like that before I even understood what rock climbing was. So I moved to Pennsylvania to go to college for a couple of years, and that's where I first rock climbed. Got on a spring break trip with some friends down to the Red River Gorge, and was very humbled to struggle up some easy rock climbs down there. Had no upper body. But absolutely loved it. Moved to California to finish up college and actually lived out there from 96 through 2013. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really became a rock climber, is in Southern California, climbing the cliffs of Malibu. And a historic place called Stony Point is where a lot of actual big-time climbers in Yosemite, they've got their roots there, a place called Stony Point. So climbed all over California, Joshua Tree and Yosemite and Bishop and Mammoth, and then moved out to El Paso, Texas in 2013. And that's also a place that has amazing rock climbing. And that's where I kind of became a professional and got into it as my my form of money making a living off of it. So
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, climbing is, to me, very foreign, because obviously there is opportunities around here, even hyper locally, like Sawyer Quarry and stuff, which you're involved in. We'll get into that. Yeah, but anyway, there's a lot of really interesting things coming up here in the future that you're working on. Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited to hear, before we talk about all this local stuff, we'll keep people like cliff hanging. What's the businesses down in Texas that you're involved with? Because I have an interesting connection with Texas as well. Oh, cool. I got a lot of friends down there who podcast. They have outdoors podcasts, and I go down there every year and, go to this big convention they have. So it's really interesting, like this weird Ohio-Texas connection. My brother lived in Texas for a few years. It's a beautiful place, and from here, a lot of people just think Texas is the typical Texas that you hear. But there's rock climbing there. You own gyms in Texas. And how'd you get involved with all that?
Well, first of all, Texas, when you think of Texas, people mostly think of Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. Mm-hmm. I am nowhere near those places. So it's completely foreign to me to spend time in Houston. I've never been there. And it's funny when people from Ohio, will say, "Oh, I'm going to be in Texas. Maybe I'll stop by and see you." Like, no, you're not going to. Because I literally lived closer to San Diego, and I could go surfing in the ocean faster than I could go to Houston. Yeah. Also, I could go up to Durango, Colorado faster than I could get to Austin, Texas, the capital. So basically, if you think of El Paso, Texas, it's a straight shot south of Albuquerque. It's only about a 3.5-hour drive south of Albuquerque, and a 6-hour drive east of Phoenix. Okay. So that kind of like little triangle there kind of demonstrates where El Paso is, right in the middle of a big desert, Chihuahua Desert, and it's just an amazing spot. So beautiful. A lot of people kind of pass right through El Paso and think it's a dump, but it's actually an amazing place. That's one of the best kept secrets. It's gorgeous. So there's this really cool spot right in the middle of the desert where these big rocks just come right up out of the desert, almost like an island. Go up about 300 feet off the desert floor, and they're this type of rock that's very I guess, specific to rock climbers called Wacos. There's Wacos covering this rock. Porphyry syenite is the name of the rock, and it just has these features that are really solid, and they're not going to break under your hands for the most part. So that's probably the most famous part of the United States for bouldering, a specific type of climbing. There's other climbing in Texas, but not much. Mostly it's going to be out west in the desert. So
yeah, I mean, rock climbing is, in my mind, and granted, I come from a background of backpacking. You know, I do like mountain biking, adventure racing, like stuff like that. Just
cool.
Real active outdoor stuff I love. And, you know, rock climbing has always, to me, seemed the most intimidating of all the sports because there's, like, backpacking, like, we talked about this a little bit when you had a presentation recently, too. I was like, I always feel like backpacking, you don't have to be in super great shape. I mean, you can be. Obviously, there's not, 100% one way or the other. But rock climbing, from what I imagine, is really physically demanding. To do it at a the level you see on TVs and documentaries that everybody wants to do. And you can say that with any sport.
Right.
But what kind of training typically goes into a rock climber? Say, a person like me who would love to come and try out rock climbing, how long would it take me to expect to be effective? Not scaling, El Cap, but like doing local stuff that would be like going down on a trip to Red River Gorge or something like that. How long does something like that take, and what kind of training does that entail?
Yeah, and I think that is a common perception, but we're trying to get people to break out of that perception a little bit, because some people are in the mindset where they just think, well, if I just lose 50 pounds, then I'll be able to start rock climbing, which is not true. They might have a little easier time rock climbing if they weighed less, but you don't have to be in any particular shape to be able to do it. You just have to understand that climbing is all about the strength to weight ratio. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the lighter you are, the better climber you're going to be. Sometimes someone with a lot of muscle can be a great climber, and sometimes those bodybuilders, gym buffs, will not be a very good climber. It depends on where that muscle is also. So generally you don't want to have big, giant, beefy legs. It's not going to...
I'm in trouble.
Oh, no. It's not going to be the worst thing, but generally if you look at the strongest climbers out there, they kind of have skinny legs. Skinnier than the cyclists and things like that, because you generally don't have to have super strong lower body. It's all about the upper body for the most part, the core, shoulder, arm, fingers. But not to diminish the importance of footwork. Legs, footwork, it's very important to have strong legs. You just don't need to have like the beefy CrossFit legs.
Yeah. And I was, something that I've come to a conclusion recently is like, you grow up, you go to high school, and everything's all about weightlifting and strength and this and that, and hardly people don't focus a lot on things that are really important, like body weight exercises, which are crucial, I think, and for a lot of outdoor activities, or just being alive in general. If you can't move your body, then all the strength in the world isn't doing you much good. And then, a thing I've seen a lot of documentaries and stuff I've watched about rock climbing is flexibility. You guys are flexible. So does that, come into play a lot, especially the flexibility aspect of it? I mean, do you guys spend a lot of time with like mobility and stretching and stuff like that, or is that just a byproduct of training for rock climbing?
I'd say yes to both sides of that question, but I'd say there's a lot of kinesthetics there that come into play with rock climbing that could benefit a person if they come from a background like gymnastics or even ballet, where someone's body is already very flexible, as well as, especially the gymnasts, they're already going to have that upper body strength as well. It's not in my head right now. I'm trying to remember the type of training at gyms that only use body weight as resistance. like that type
I'm not
of
sure. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but it's all like pull-ups and push-ups.
Yeah, like handstands, those kind of things. I'm trying to remember the name of that type of fitness. But that's the type that climbing is generally going to be kind of the best use of, as far as a very practical use of strength. You're not going to, we do definitely see climbers benefit from weights, but oftentimes it's adding weight to your pull-up. So it's like increasing your weight as you're doing the resistance.
Well, you're carrying like small packs and things too, and you're carrying all these carabiners and ropes and stuff when you're climbing as well. So you can't just lift your body, right? I mean, that would, for certain types of climbing. And you know, since this show specifically is based out of here in the Midwest, you know, I don't know anybody currently, except for now you, that does rock climb, like in my circle of friends in the outdoors community. So what kind of gear, because people love talking about gear, backpackers, cyclists, that's all they talk about, gear. And to me, rock climbing seems a little more free from the gear cycle. I mean, you have stuff that you obviously need to climb, but what kind of gear are you looking at for just a regular climb, you and a buddy going up a rock face? What's the essentials?
If I was to take you on your first rock climb, you would absolutely need a harness, and you definitely benefit from climbing shoes rather than your basic tennis shoe or boot. Definitely would benefit from the sticky rubber on the bottom of the climbing shoe and a shoe that fits your toes pretty tight, but for your first time, I would not want you to be in pain. That's a misnomer. Some people think that your climbing shoe has to be in, forcing pain in your toes to be curled up. But we want beginners to be comfortable out there. So beyond the harness and the shoes, we're probably going to give you some chalk, depending on how hot it is, how much sweat you're going to be having in your hands. That definitely helps to keep the friction on the rock. We're going to get ropes and carabiners and belay devices and those types of things. For the climb, you will be on top rope. So you probably have somebody with you that knows what they're doing that's going to set up the anchor at the top and drop the rope. So you could both top rope, or you're going to be having the first climber lead up the face, and they'd be using quick draws, which are carabiners that are connected together with a little sling, and you're clipping that into these little bolts and bolt hangers on the side of the face as you go up. So it's not, it is actually one of the cheapest sports to get into and to stay involved with, as opposed to like mountain biking that, can require like a $1,500 purchase. Yeah. And a lot
I learned
of
that
upkeep.
lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could probably get into rock climbing the cheapest way by getting a pair of shoes and a bouldering crash pad. So you spend maybe $300 and chalk is really cheap, and you can start bouldering.
Yeah, and I think locally that's probably the best bet for a lot of people that don't plan on going out to all these crazy places around the world yet. Hopefully that's the goal for everyone. So speaking of travel, I love travel stories. That's probably my favorite thing on earth, is just hearing other people's cool stories. And you've got a ton of them because you do cool stuff like rock climbing the big mountains. You've been on with the Tetons all over the U.S. and stuff. So what's some of the best stuff you've experienced along your journey so far?
Oh gosh, yeah, a lot, and it's been really exciting to be pursuing this career. Back in 2014 is when I decided to look into becoming a guide, and because of that, I've been required to have like a resume that's stacked full of different climbs and different types of climbing as well. So I've climbed Yosemite and all over New Mexico, Colorado, and a little bit in Utah, as well as the Tetons up in Wyoming, and some, like I said, West Texas as well, down at their Waco Tanks. So because I became a guide, I had to get some experience in those different types of areas and climbs, and different rock types, and different difficulty levels as well. So one thing I had to do was to gain experience on what we call grade 3 routes, which are climbs that require an extensive hike in as well as an all-day climb and extensive hike out. So not a climb you can do, or typical people do, in like a half day. It takes like a full day to do these kind of climbs. So that's why I've been climbing up in the Tetons, and that's why I've been climbing in parts of Colorado, like that's up in Tetons, like the Diamond in Rocky Mountain National Park. So, do you want to get into one of those stories that we talked about earlier?
I've heard the story once, but I want to hear it again because it was so good. Because the harrowing adventures are the ones that everybody loves. Like, am I right?
For
Those
sure.
are the ones. So, I would definitely be interested in letting the people of the podcast hear the story because it was very hairy. I don't know if I'd want to be caught in a situation like this, but the floor is yours.
So, well, actually, I wanted to start this with a T-shirt that I saw in the movie last night that you saw as well.
We did.
We both watched, actually, independent from each other, we watched the movie.
The Alpinist, right?
Yeah, The Alpinist.
Great movie.
Yeah, I totally recommend watching it. In that movie, Alex Honnold, who I think most people know as the free soloist who was the star of that movie, Free Solo, he was wearing a T-shirt that said, "The mountains are not calling you." and I was like, oh man, I wonder if he's going to explain that in this movie. And he didn't, but I thought that actually makes a whole lot of sense. The mountains don't care about you.
No, not at all.
They do not care about you, and the weather can change on a dime. And that does bring me to this story. I have 3 different stories where I had to bail off of a multi-pitch climb. And multi-pitches, those are climbs where you start at the bottom end of the face, and usually after like miles and miles of hiking to get to it, you start at the bottom of the face, and you climb up about 100, 150 feet and stop there and belay for your partner to meet you. And then the next person, might be the guide or it could be the partner, climbs the next pitch. Another 100, 200 feet, stops there and belays for the follower. So you do that over and over until you get to the top of the wall. I was doing this last summer in Rocky Mountain National Park at the Diamond, and I made it my goal to try to get to the top of this route. It's a 510, and it looks good on my resume to get into this rock guide course. I was going to keep me fresh as far as the skills. Since I knew I was moving to Ohio, there's not very many big walls like that to climb, so I decided to give it my best before I got married in October to do this climb. And I tried it once in August, beginning of August, and had little success because my partner thought he'd be able to do this as a 510 climb, and he climbs 510 on sport routes near the ground without the big approaches and everything. He does fine. But this one, because it's already high up in the mountains, and he had to basically climb some easy pitches, about 500 feet of easy climbing at the bottom, and he was getting passed left and right, and we were simul climbing, which means we're only attached with a rope with like 2 pieces of protection in between us. So basically, if he fell, he'd be pulling me off the mountain, and hopefully one of our cams catches.
I'm not scared at all, no.
No. I think he got freaked out a little bit about that because of all these super regular, strong Coloradoans were just like cruising past us, most of them free soloing, and he just was kind of out of his head a little bit.
Yeah.
We got to the top of that, and he said, "Ben, I just can't do it." So we did one pitch and then came back down, rappelled off. And I thought, well, I got to go back. I got to try to finish this thing. So I found another friend who was a little bit stronger, and I thought he'd have a much better chance of getting to the top of this wall. So the Diamond is about a 2,000 foot, 2,500 foot face that is the east face of Long's Peak. And it is very important that we note that it's facing east because the weather comes from the west. So the weather comes from the west, and while you're climbing on this face, you are not able to see the cloud formation, what's coming up. So you're kind of just having to take a look straight up and see what the clouds are doing straight up as they've already passed your head. Kind of scary.
Reassuring, yeah.
Yeah. So we look at the weather report, and we know that Colorado, the Rockies, has a tendency of getting thunderstorms in the afternoons. And we thought, yeah, we're going to try to get an early start, get off the mountain by 2, 3 in the afternoon at the latest. So we go up there, we hike, and we decide to spend the night. We do a little fly fishing and then spend the night in an area where we bivvy and just set up our sleeping bags underneath some big boulders and try to get up at like 3 a.m. And start super early. And we do that. We get on the face, and only a few other climbers are in our area. We see some headlamps down the trail a little bit, so people coming our way. So we start climbing the easy section, the first 500 feet, where we simul climb, 2 of us together, attached with a rope and like 2 or 3 pieces of protection on the way up. Because it was dark and I was looking around, I thought I knew the best path to go, this being my second time doing this, and I ended up taking a much harder method of getting to the top of that 500-foot section, and that kind of wasted some time in the morning, and it was not the best way of starting the day. But we got up to this big, easy walkway about halfway up the face, and it's called Wall Street. And that's the end of the easy climbing. You're about to start the really steep stuff. That's where the 510 section comes in. So we get up there probably around 8 in the morning, and it's already sunny, beautiful day, beautiful morning, but we just start behind this other pair of climbers that are just in front of us. We were hoping to stay in front of them, but just missed that opportunity. And that's important because in the next 4 hours, every single pitch that we do, we end up getting kind of clogged and jammed behind these 2 other climbers. So they tell us, sorry, we'll try to be a little bit faster. We get up to the next pitch, and they're still kind of slowing us down slightly. And by the time we get to the top of the 4th pitch, the guy I keep running into, he says, "Oh, we're so sorry. We owe you a beer. You want to pass us, you can, but we're already kind of here. So when we get down, we'll all get a beer together." We get up to that section, and my partner is getting really, really tired. And we're at the top of the 5th pitch. And I start the climb. Actually, it's at the beginning of the 5th pitch. I start the climb. I get about maybe 30 feet off of the base where I start that, and all of a sudden I realize that there's frozen things starting to fall down.
Oh, man.
What's going on here? And it's like sleet and hail, and just my hands are starting to get cold, and every single hold that I use is covered with a little bit of ice. I have to kind of brush it off first. So, yeah, not fun, and I know I have to finish that pitch. Get to the top, finally, and I'm blanking for my partner, and he's just struggling on his way up. It's getting cold. He was like at the base of the last climb for probably a half an hour, 45 minutes, just waiting down there. So he got really cold. He just struggling to get up. It takes a few falls, wastes the rope a few times, and just swearing up a storm.
We've all been there, yeah.
And we get to the top. He gets to the top of the climb, and I'm already thinking this is probably our last pitch. I don't think we're going to do any more because of the question of what's the weather going to do over the top of the mountain. It's already snowing, sleeting, hailing, whatever it's doing, frozen stuff falling, and that the duo climbers that are in front of us, they are still there, and they're at the next station, and we talk to them. And they're like, "Well, we're gonna do this climb right now. We're gonna bail, but we have to get off this mountain. You guys should too." But they were recommending that we bail by going up and over to the rappel line, which is how you're supposed to go down. Yeah. But my partner just did not have it in him to go up any further, so I had to make a decision to turn around. So we call that bailing. And the problem with bailing where we were deciding to bail is that it wasn't meant for it. It's not meant for people going down. So we knew we were going to have to leave some things. We're probably going to have to create some anchors and leave some of our gear on the way back down. So we start rappelling off of that top of pitch 5. It's a 7-pitch route. Okay. So we're at the top of pitch 5. And only had like 2 short pitches to go after that, but we never got to them. So we start rappelling down, and before I even rappel down, I take off my backpack to kind of switch up my gear, and my partner my partner accidentally kind of moves and shifts his foot and kicks the backpack off of the mountain. and it rolls a few feet, and I lean over, try to grab it. I'm tied in, so I can't reach it, and it starts going off the edge, and it probably falls a good, 800 feet or so down to that Wall Street ledge that I was talking about earlier. And in that backpack is my my radio and some other items like my headlamp, which is important for the bail off as well. So that happened, and then a little while after that, I'm getting ready to rappel. He's up in front of me. He's already set up for the rappel. Actually, he's setting up for the rappel. I'm down below him. We're about to both wrap off of this on our lines, and I see some of his gear start to float in front of me. And it's like, hey, Jason, his name is Jason, a friend of mine from Bowling Green, Ohio, actually.
Yeah,
which is wild. Yeah. So some of his gear starts floating down in front of me, and I'm like, Jason, is this yours? He said, yeah, sorry. That just fell off my harness.
Oh, my.
So at this point, it's like late in the afternoon. It's still snowing, and we're like, all right, we need to get into survival mode here. We need to survive this.
That's always a bad feeling, too, when you know you're just in it now and there's nothing you can do. Like, it always just feels like,
yep.
Not always panic. It's always just like, oh, this is going to be a long day.
For
like
sure.
That feeling.
For sure. It was one of those moments where I realized, you know what? Close my eyes, take a big breath.
Yeah.
And meet my partner, Jason, meet him eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, Jason, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Because at this point, we both had made a few mistakes today. And we was like, we have a long way down if we're going to rappel off of this line. And it was still only about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And it got dark around 6, 7 at this time of the summer. It's like late summer, beginning of September. And we start rappelling. We get down the first pitch, and we're both down there at the next station. We create an anchor, and then my partner, Jason, starts to pull the rope. And he pulls the rope, and for some reason, the rope gets stuck in one of the cracks, which is actually a pretty common thing to do, which is why this route is not designed for the wrap-off because of all the possible cracks and fissures that the rope can get stuck in. So it does get stuck about 50 feet on top of us, ahead of us, and we're pulling on this rope, and we keep pulling and pulling. It's just not going anywhere, and we're trying to decide what to do. Do we climb back up and get that rope unstuck and then wrap back down to this station? That could put us back as long as like an extra hour, 40 minutes or so. Who knows how long it'll take. And we see the other people, the other team, they're starting to wrap down the actual wrap line. So they're going to start moving a lot faster than us. And we're like, well, if we can just get down there and meet them, we'll be able to wrap off that bottom 1,000 feet. The easy section where we climbed up, there's a wrap line to the left of that where it's designed for just like 3 quick rappels with double ropes. So we decide what we should do, and we decide to actually cut the rope. So we cut off 50 feet of our rope, maybe 70 feet, somewhere in there. And we decided to limit ourselves to a rope and a half, a rope and 3/4, somewhere in there. We knew that we wouldn't have 2 full 60-meter ropes to rappel the rest of the line with, which could be problematic, and sure enough, it was.
Of course.
In the
Why
long
wouldn't
run.
it be?
Of course. So we finally start rappelling again and have to rappel even more times because of our shortened rope. And we wrap off another 3 rope lengths until we're about 1 rope length off of that Wall Street ledge. And we're finally able to see the other team get down to that Wall Street ledge, and they're walking down at the wrap station. They're cleaning up and getting ready to wrap off. It's still snowing and rain and a mix of weather that could get worse at any moment. We're not sure what's going on. So we're like, we see them. We call out, hey, will you wait for us? We're almost down. We want to wrap off with you. And unfortunately, the same guy who said that he's going to give us a beer said, "Sorry, we got to save ourselves. We don't know what weather's coming over the top of the mountain."
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Typically, in this guy was a super cool guy. He was really great, except for that moment of
Potentially leaving you to die. No problem.
Potentially leaving us to fend for ourselves. Usually climbers are really cool about that stuff. I'm not sure what he had going on, but that was definitely a moment when we realized, all right, we might be in for a long night tonight. So we end up wrapping off. We get down to that Wall Street ledge, and I see that they are already wrapped off, but I wonder, maybe there's a chance I could still get there before they actually, get off that ledge. Just show them, hey, we're here, ready to go. Can we wrap down with you? This could save us hours of work, and it could save our lives if the weather gets really bad over the top. Who knows? I get down there and I see that they're already wrapped off, but the rope is still through the chains, through the anchor station. And I see that the rope is actually sliding through the chains. They're pulling the rope down to the next belay station, next wrap station. I get there just in time to grab the end of the rope. And I'm like, what do I do? do I pull this rope so they kind of figure out that we're going to wrap off with them and potentially make them really mad and frustrated and, am I going to be that kind of a guy, or am I just going to let them do their thing? Or, if I do let the rope go, is this the end of my life and my partner's life, Jason? Because I'm putting us in greater danger. What do I do? And I literally had all these thoughts in my head, and I had to make a decision within like 2 to 5 seconds, because I did not want these people down below me to think that their rope was stuck and that they're going to have to, get frustrated and pull that rope. And there's no way for me to communicate with them. Didn't have a way to yell at them or a radio or anything. So in that split-second decision, I let go of the rope. And in that moment, I wondered if I was just letting go of my life and my partner's life and what was going to happen. But I do know that we had a lot of knowledge, we had skill, and we had a rope and 3/4 to wrap down the route that we came. So we end up doing that, which is, if the first line was not meant for rappelling, the second one was completely not meant for wrapping. So we go down this ravine that's full of loose rock and just not at all meant for rappelling down, full of cracks and ways to get the rope stuck and everything. And it's by now about 5 or 6 at night, getting dark very quickly. Still snowing, raining, sleeting, everything. And we start wrapping off, and I did, after pulling the rope one time, did end up dropping a decent-sized rock onto my partner's head, and fortunately, that's why we wear helmets.
Yeah.
It put a little dent in his helmet.
Doesn't make the, I'm sure, already frustrating situation worse by any means.
Right. At this point, though, I think we're both kind of laughing about everything. Like, is this actually happening? And we came to the realization that, hey, as long as the weather doesn't get worse, we got this, we're going to be okay. Until we realized it was dark, and in that backpack that fell 500 feet was my headlamp, and that no longer works. So we get to the point where just like trying to find other ways to make things work, had to use some of my climbing tape to actually tape my my iPhone to my helmet. So
I love that.
That becomes my new headlamp.
I've had so many situations like that. It's amazingly terrible how funny they are after the fact. But when you're there, you're like, this is really my life right now. Oh.
Exactly. Yeah, MacGyver it. You've got to do whatever.
That's what you got to work
whatever
with.
It takes. Yeah. And that was great, and it worked for the next 2 hours, but then the cell phone died, and literally had to go the last 2 rappels in the dark. So that was another just like moment of just epic story and adventure for me to be able to share with podcasts someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all for the podcast.
Exactly.
Why else would you do it?
So after that first rappel where I dropped the rock, or I didn't, the rope kind of dislodged a rock at the top, landed on his head. He was okay, and we both got down. Sometimes, because we have a shortened rope, it's not quite long enough to get to each rappel station. We had to kind of make our own, make things work. And finally, after about 3 hours of wrapping off in the dark, off of sketchy little anchors, we get to the base of this section, and we know, okay, we've made it out alive. We got to the base, and that's where we're still having to go navigate a snowfield, like a little glacier. And we bail, and we left the rope. Couldn't even pull that rope off. He lost both of his ropes, and we probably left behind about $300 to $400 worth of gear, just as we're bailing off of each anchor station. So the next day, whenever someone climbed the route next, they picked up about
$300 or $400
$400 worth of gear. Yeah, good for them. We call that booty. Yeah.
I was curious about what happened with stuff like that got left over, and those are the stories that I really love because I feel like that a lot of the time in the outdoors world, you learn so many valuable lessons that you're not going to get. Whether it doesn't matter the sport, honestly, because I've had these same experiences backpacking and kayaking and mountain biking.
Right.
It's all the same, but you're getting these really valuable experiences that what you would say modern humans don't get anymore because you're not put in these puzzle situations very often. I mean, occasionally your car breaks down and you go, what do? I got to figure this out. And you call somebody and it figures itself out really rapidly. But when you're on your own, left to your own devices in the middle of the wilderness with just you and maybe another person or two with what's on your back, that you really have to think clearly and efficiently and using your brain in a way that I think it was meant to be used for thousands and thousands of years.
For sure.
And I just, the outdoors to me teaches resiliency in a way that a formal MBA in business and working in a Fortune 500 company can't teach you. That's a lot of what I see in the world today. And I'm we all have to live. Obviously we all have to work and do things to stay alive in this modern day to an extent. But I'm so driven to the outdoors because of those experiences and because, I feel like I've learned more in 6 months on the Appalachian Trail, just being outside and having to figure out what to do than I will ever learned in college. It's definitely a challenge every single day with the outdoors, and even probably simple rock climbs give you a challenge still. Even if you've done a rock wall 50,000 times, there's still a challenge to it, And so have you noticed any of that yourself? Like to a philosophical level, have you noticed that you've taken away lessons from the outdoors that you use daily? Whether it's with business, running a business, or just family life or anything?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's that problem-solving skill, critical thinking, problem-solving. And like you said, that actually is found even on the simplest boulder problems. In fact, that's why we call them that. We call them problems that need to be solved and figured out. And I think it's one of the best things about rock climbing because your mind has to be engaged fully to be able to climb. You have to figure out, is this going to be a good right hand? Should I put my left hand there? How do I stay balanced? Do I send my left foot out to the side to be able to reach my right hand further? We call that flagging. Figuring things out from that perspective of climbing movement to the survival aspect of how do I get off this mountain. Those types of scenarios for sure can add not just internal courage, knowledge, experience, that kind of wisdom, I'd say. All that knowledge is bound up in this idea of wisdom, like what to do in situations, how to apply that knowledge, and to understand how to make those decisions under stress.
Yeah.
That's
very important.
Yeah, that's the key. And I've learned that about myself, that in the moment, I am able to do those things fairly well. When I am in a superficial environment like the test I have to take with the American Mountain Guide Association to be able to get this next certification, I put all that stress on myself and I have this test anxiety and I freak out. And I can't sleep at night. But
we all live that life too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so it's challenging for sure, but I think there's absolutely real life situations that can be put into play with just your own household, things that go on with your family, sickness, changes, COVID.
Yeah. Oh,
what
geez.
to do with the small business when COVID strikes. It's like, well, let's problem solve. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
How are we gonna survive this?
Yep. And I think it's a shame to me that more people aren't what you can say into the outdoors, whatever that means to you.
For sure.
And there's a lot of factions in the outdoor world because my podcast is very general. I talk to rock climbers, hunters, backpackers, anybody that does anything cool that I think is cool. I talk to them. And, to me, I don't think the media matters. You can go and be a backpacker. You can be a tree hugger. You can be a vegan. You can be a hunter. I don't care. But I think these lessons are important for everyone, for every situation. And I see people scared of bugs, and it's like, oh my gosh, like we have a long way to go as an outdoors community to bring more people in, because at the end of the day, my goal for this is always about conservation in the end. Well, through whatever the activity is. And I know a lot of people that are hardcore into the outdoors, and it doesn't matter if they're in any of those activities, their end goal is also conservation. And I have this ethic, and I don't think I've created anything here. It's just something that I believe firmly is that, you're never going to get people that don't care about outdoors in general. We're not talking the people who already go and do the REI lifestyle and live and go travel and go to these remote places that they love. I'm talking your average, your sister or your uncle that just watches TV and doesn't care. But I always say that these people are never going to care about the bigger picture issues like conservation and stuff without having fun experiences in the outdoors, whatever that means to them. Kayaking, easy, fun, can be also challenging and terrifying. Sure. Rock climbing can be easy, fun, can be challenging, terrifying. I don't know if you feel that way. I ask all my guests that. Do you think that rings true for you as someone who teaches people actively and owns businesses that revolve around the outdoors? Do you think that making sure that they have the best, funnest experience leads to that path eventually? This isn't an overnight thing, caring about the bigger issue pictures, public lands are hot topics for rock climbers even, because those areas go away, you don't have anywhere to climb.
That's actually a huge issue for the climbing community right now.
All communities now.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Specifically the climbing community, because, we don't have... I'm not sure if kayaking is exploding like climbing is, but climbing in the last 20 years has exploded literally. Well, not literally, I guess, but it has incrementally just kind of multiplied by tenfold because of the development of climbing gyms. Since the late 90s, we have probably 10 to 15 times more climbing gyms than existed in, say, 1998. So because of that, and particularly those gyms are found in cities, big cities, a lot of people from the big cities are venturing to these crags, these outdoor climbing places. And unfortunately, they're not all getting trained to handle themselves appropriately in the outdoors. So they don't know what to do. They know enough to bring toilet paper with them, but they don't know where to go and how to go, and
important issues.
Those kind of things. Yeah, they don't know how to take care of the crag, and we say it's becoming overloved. They're getting loved to death, and it might actually stop the use if the land managers actually see the abuse that the land is going through because of climbing or any other user group using it. So we are actually working towards training. I think that's a very important part of the climbing gym
100%.
World, is to actually teach these classes called Gym to Crags. And when people learn how to climb indoors, we want to make sure they know how to climb outdoors as well and handle themselves in nature and at the crag. So try to teach them ethics and principles of leave no trace, cleaning up after yourself, and volunteering for crag cleanup days, where we actually try to make level paths, make sustainable belaying ledges for different areas. Very important what's going on down in Red River Gorge with the different climbers coalitions. So all those things to say that, the impact that just one user group, the climbers, have had in our national parks and other areas is just so detrimental that we're now realizing that we might need to just raise the level of awareness. So when I'm teaching people how to climb, I do bring that level of ethics and sustainability into our conversation.
Talk about a boulder problem,
Yeah.
But no, it's universal. I have the same conversation with backpackers. I have the same conversation with, people who've done long distance kayaking. I have the same conversation with hunters. And I used to have this goal to get as many people outdoors as possible, and I still do. But in my younger days in college, I was a little uninformed, and I've been trying to change that. I read probably 50 to 100 books a year, just simply because I have this platform. I want to educate people as much as possible, because that not only does uninformed new people, which there will always be because they're new, that's since the advent of social media, I've seen a lot more negative pushback, but like in a bullying way. And these are creating huge rifts in communities that already don't need that, because, we don't want to lose these great places. These national parks are like pretty specific to America. They're beautiful places that don't exist anywhere else on earth.
Right.
And like a place that we can all just go, and whether you want to go rock climb or go down the Colorado River on a kayak or whatever you want to do, those places will not just allow you to do that forever and trash it. And that's just like a problem to fix. But like you said, I don't know how to fix it. I'm one guy. So I think like these conversations to me are very important, because like that's where we all need to learn to come together. And instead of saying this stupid a-hole, F him, he's ruining it for everybody, like you need to educate that guy without being mean, because when you get yelled at, your first instinct is like, screw you, dude. I'm not doing So yeah, I'm glad that you're doing that, and I'm also glad that you're bringing that to this area. I think there may be another rock climbing gym in the area. I don't really know because I don't rock climb, but before kind of we'll wrap up here in a little bit. Why don't you let people know the plans for the future here, because I'm very excited to get more outdoor activities in Northwest Ohio, because this is not a place people think of when they think of the outdoors. Right. And I want it to be, because I live here and I love it here, and it's honestly not a bad place to recreate outdoors. We have tons of parks, water,
awesome. Yeah,
lots of stuff within driving distance. And so what's your contribution to the future of the outdoors of Northwest Ohio?
Awesome. Thanks for asking. So when I was actually pursuing this girl that lived in Toledo, I was like, all right, well, I'm a climber, and I climb for a living. So why would I live in Toledo, Ohio? What am I going to do? Bring climbing to Toledo. I think right now there's no climbing gym, and I could help bring a climbing gym to Toledo. So since I looked into moving here, a gym did open up. It's a very small little bouldering wall, and it's called Climb Toledo. So they're up in the northern part of the town. So check them out, the little bouldering gym. And I'm also part of a big company that's trying to build a full-service facility, which full-service means there's going to be bouldering, there's going to be top roping, there's going to be lead climbing, and we're going to have a little workout area as well, some fitness. We're also going to have access to the trail system in the Toledo Parks area. It's really close by the Wildwood Metro Park. Yep. So we have an Instagram and we have Facebook. It's called Adventist Climbing. Look us up and find us. Look at our location and even drive by the location to see just how perfect it is as far as the location. It's going to be great right off the bike trail.
Beautiful area too. It's just heart of the Toledo area, really.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, and I'm looking forward to someday riding my bike to work on those trails.
That's sweet.
So it should be sweet. But yeah, we're hoping to do that, and looking to open up our doors by the end of 2022. So just like everything, there's problems. There's issues with permitting and getting all the ducks in a row. with a big project like this. It's going to, and especially coming off of a little thing called COVID pandemic. It's going to be
hasn't helped anyone.
Challenging for sure, but just like everything else, climbing related, these problems can be overcome and figured out and solved.
Yeah, and it's sounded when I went to your presentation, which was great, by the way, the other day here at Wood County Parks. Are you working with them with Sawyer Quarry, just kind of like consulting in a way, or what's that? Because I've heard of Sawyer Quarry to Boulder, but I've never like been able to get out there and try any of that stuff. So locally, how involved are you with that?
So Adventus is not partnering with Wood County so much as I am personally.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
sorry.
So I'm employed by Adventus, but I'm also a climbing guide, and right now that is the prime spot to guide here in Northwest Ohio, in Perrysburg. So it's like a short drive down to Perrysburg to do some rappelling or top rope climbing or bouldering. Right now, there's no real lead climbing with ropes there. It's possible it could be added in the future, but Wood County has a good system there for climbing, and I have a permit to be able to guide there, so I'm in connection with the manager there named Craig, and he has worked with me to allow me to come in and instruct rappelling skills or different kinds of skills. So, yeah, it's a good partnership.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. Anytime a new activity comes to the area, I get super psyched about it because I'm the only podcast that does this locally, as far as I know. So, I always try and get them in here and promote that so people can go. And the Craig you're talking about, I believe Craig Spicer, he was like one of my first guests on the podcast, and you guys might want to go check that one out. We got a little, we may have gotten a little drunk and it got a little wild on there. It was the early days of the show where we were just wild west chaos, and it was great. But Ben, I want to thank you for coming in and talking about this. I'm super excited. Everybody listening should be super excited about it because, I want to get in there and try rock climbing. I will probably be terrible at it, just as I am with most
Let's
things.
Go, man.
But I'd love to give it a try. And, you already kind of said you had a Facebook and all that stuff that people go check out. I'll put that down, links below, and the video and the audio version of this podcast. And, you got any closing sentiments for the people of the world, that you want them to know?
Just wanted to reiterate that that concept of conservation. I think I am right there with you as far as conservation. In our conversation. But I also want to highlight the idea of community, that climbing is all about community. It's something very special when you share a rope with somebody, when you're literally saving their life and they're saving yours by holding this rope and paying attention to what you're doing. That can bridge that, that friendship, and that could, bring two people closer together in a friendship that they never thought possible. And that person could be a complete stranger that you've never met before, and they might save your life one day just by giving you a good catch on a rope. Bouldering is also a great way to be involved with the community. It's an amazing way to support one another. A lot of times people think, well, bouldering is just an individual sport because you're climbing by yourself. You don't need a rope, which is true. But bouldering is also a great way to just help each other out, whether it's spotting, help to protect a person from a fall, or it could be just pointing out some beta, giving them some feedback. Hey, why don't you try a right foot over here? Why don't you try a flag? Those types of moves. So if anybody wants to try climbing for the first time, look me up through adventusclimbing.com, or you can also look me up on Facebook. Benjamin Wags is my Instagram tag name.
Yep, and I'll link all that down below. And thank you for coming in, man, and I can't wait to check it out when it opens up.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors podcast here on YouTube. If you can, give me a hand. Go down below and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you can get updates when any new Aptitude Outdoors podcast or video is released. Before we go here, I want to thank Ben for coming on and sharing all of his awesome stories with us. You know, those harrowing adventures I'm always a sucker for, because what's life without a little adventure, am I right? So thanks, Ben. Make sure you go down below in the links and check out Adventus. You know, it's coming up in the next year or so. If you live in Northwest Ohio or surrounding areas, you're definitely going to want to come here and check that out. And, you know, you can climb with Ben as a personal guide as well. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you get a hold of him as well. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.